Some doors are meant to stay closed, but the human mind always itches to open them, even when the warnings are crystal clear. Tonight we step into the shadows of the dark web, a place where secrets fester and nightmares are born. Let's have a closer look what these secret nightmares have in store with us. Story 1: The Disappearing Forum. Not all mysteries are meant to be solved, and some paths we take can lead to places we can't return from. Tonight we'll unravel the story of Nathan, a young man who stumbled onto a dark web forum, a place that not only consumed his curiosity but eventually consumed him. This isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a glimpse into the terrifying unknown. Nathan had always been a bit of a thrill seeker, but not in the traditional sense. While his friends went skydiving or bungee jumping, Nathan's adrenaline rush came from his computer. A computer science major, Nathan loved hacking, coding, and diving into parts of the internet that most people didn't even know existed. "It's just data," he used to say whenever his roommate Chris warned him about his late-night online escapades. "What's the worst that could happen?" But Nathan underestimated the kind of data you could stumble across on the dark web. It was a Friday night in October and campus life was in full swing. While others were out partying, Nathan was holed up in his dorm room, a glowing laptop screen lighting up his face. He scrolled through a dark web directory, a list of links with cryptic descriptions. Most of them led to mundane or illegal content he'd seen a dozen times before. But then, one link stood out: the Oblivion Collective. The description read, "For those who seek the ultimate truth, beware of what you find." Nathan raised an eyebrow. It wasn't the typical clickbait he'd seen on similar forums. Curious, he clicked the link, and the page slowly loaded. The site was minimalist. No flashy graphics, no ads. Just a black screen with a single sentence written in red text: "Welcome, Seeker." Below the greeting was a list of threads, each one with an ominous title: "The Ritual," "Through the Gate," "Endless Cycles." But the pinned thread at the top drew Nathan's attention: "Choose your reality." Unlike the other threads, it had no replies or comments, just a countdown timer. 3 hours. 3 hours, Nathan thought. What kind of forum uses countdowns? It was weird, but the mystery intrigued him. He bookmarked the page and set a timer on his phone to check back when the countdown hit 0. 3 hours later, Nathan returned to his laptop, the anticipation building. When he refreshed the page, the countdown was gone. Instead, there was a button: "Enter the gate." He hesitated for a moment. Was this just a prank? A weird marketing scheme? But his curiosity won out. He clicked the button and the screen went black. A few seconds later, text appeared: "To proceed, you must consent. Reality will never be the same." 2 options popped up below: agree and leave. Nathan laughed. "They're really trying to sell this whole ominous vibe," he muttered, clicking agree. Immediately, his webcam light turned on. His reflection appeared in a small box on the screen, looking slightly disheveled with dark circles under his eyes from too many sleepless nights. A distorted voice crackled through his speakers. "Welcome, Nathan." Nathan froze. He hadn't entered any personal information, his username, email, nothing. "What the hell?" he whispered, leaning closer to the screen. The voice continued: "You've chosen to seek the truth. Now, prove yourself worthy." The screen flickered and a maze appeared. It looked like a simple puzzle game with a small red dot that Nathan could move using his arrow keys. "Is this some kind of ARG?" Nathan muttered, his unease fading slightly as he focused on the game. At first, the maze was easy, just a few twists and turns. But as he progressed, the walls began to shift, closing off paths and forcing him to think faster. The eerie background music grew louder, a low, droning hum that set his nerves on edge. Halfway through the maze, words started flashing on the screen for brief moments, too quickly for him to read. He managed to catch glimpses of phrases like "beyond the veil" and "sacrifice is required." Nathan chuckled nervously. Whoever made this has way too much time on their hands. But then the music stopped, replaced by whispers. Dozens of voices, overlapping, growing louder. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but they seemed to be chanting. Suddenly the screen flashed red with the words, "You failed." Nathan frowned. "What? I didn't even make a wrong turn." The distorted voice returned. "Failure has consequences." Before Nathan could react, his webcam box expanded to fill the screen, but it wasn't just his reflection anymore. Behind him, barely visible in the dim light of his room, was a shadowy figure standing in the corner. Nathan spun around, his heart pounding. The corner was empty. When he turned back to his laptop, the shadow was closer, right behind his chair. "What the—" Nathan slammed the laptop shut, his hands trembling. His phone buzzed on the desk. He grabbed it, and his blood ran cold when he saw the message. "You cannot leave the collective." Over the next few days, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He'd catch glimpses of movement in his peripheral vision, but when he turned to look, there was nothing there. His phone kept buzzing with messages from unknown numbers, each one more cryptic than the last. "Reality is slipping. You've seen too much. The gatekeeper is watching." Nathan tried everything to erase his tracks, wiping his hard drive, reinstalling his operating system, even replacing his laptop, but the messages continued, appearing on every device he owned. One night, Chris, his roommate, came back to the dorm to find Nathan pacing the room, muttering to himself. "Dude, are you okay?" Chris asked. "They're everywhere," Nathan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't get rid of them." "Who?" Nathan gestured wildly at his laptop. "The collective, the gatekeeper. I don't know what they are, but they're watching me." Chris frowned. "Nathan, you've been up for 3 days straight. Maybe you just need to sleep." "No, you don't understand," Nathan snapped. "They're real." Chris decided to stay in that night to keep an eye on him. Around midnight, Nathan finally collapsed onto his bed, exhausted. Chris, still skeptical, opened Nathan's laptop. The screen was blank except for a single line of text. "Reality has chosen." Chris shook his head, shutting the laptop. But as he turned off the lights and climbed into bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone in the room. The next morning, Nathan was gone. His bed was neatly made, and all his belongings were still in the room, including his laptop and phone. It was as if he'd vanished into thin air. Campus security launched an investigation, but no leads emerged. The only clue was a single piece of paper left on Nathan's desk. Written in bold red letters were the words, "The gate is closed." Chris tried to move on, but weeks later he received an email from Nathan's account. The subject line read, "The collective endures." The body contained only one sentence, "Reality is a trap, and we're all prisoners." Nathan's story isn't just about a website or a mysterious disappearance. It's a chilling reminder of how our curiosity can lead us to places we're not prepared to handle. Some doors are meant to stay closed, and sometimes the scariest thing you can find isn't what's lurking on the other side, but the fact that you can never leave. What do you think happened to Nathan? Was it a game gone wrong, a psychological experiment, or something far more sinister? Let me know your theories in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And remember, some secrets aren't worth uncovering. Story 2. The babysitter job. Some jobs seem too good to be true, and when desperation strikes, it's easy to overlook the warning signs. Tonight, we'll explore the haunting story of Emma, a young woman who took on a babysitting gig that turned out to be anything but ordinary. The instructions were simple: watch the child, follow the rules, and under no circumstances, look out the window after midnight. Emma was 23, freshly out of college, and drowning in student loan debt. She was applying for jobs left and right, but nothing was sticking. Bills were piling up, and the pressure to stay afloat was crushing. One late night, as she scrolled through online job boards, a strange ad caught her eye. It was buried deep on a website she'd never heard of, one with a sketchy reputation but plenty of postings for odd jobs. The ad read, "Night shift babysitter needed, $1,000 per night, discretion required." Emma blinked at the screen, rereading the number. $1,000 for one night. That couldn't be real. She clicked on the ad out of curiosity. The details were vague. Location provided upon acceptance. Must stay the entire night. Minimal interaction with the child required. Strict adherence to the house rules. There was an email address at the bottom. Against her better judgment, Emma sent a message asking for more information. The response came almost immediately, with no greeting or pleasantries, just an address and the same rules from the ad, with one added line: "Do not look out the windows after midnight." Emma hesitated. The whole thing felt off, but the money was too good to pass up. She convinced herself it was just some eccentric family with more cash than sense. After all, who offers $1,000 for babysitting unless they're desperate? The next evening, Emma drove out to the address. The house was a massive old mansion, secluded in the woods about an hour outside of town. The driveway was long and winding, lined with overgrown trees that cast eerie shadows in her headlights. When she reached the house, a man and woman were waiting on the porch. They looked tired, pale, almost sickly, with dark circles under their eyes. "Thank you for coming," the man said, his voice strained. "She's already asleep. You won't need to do much. Just stay downstairs and keep an eye on the monitor." The woman handed Emma a pager. "If this goes off, go upstairs and check on her. But remember, do not look out the windows after midnight." Emma nodded, trying to hide her unease. "Got it." They didn't stay long. After giving her a brief tour of the first floor, they left without another word. The house was eerily quiet. Emma settled into the living room, keeping the baby monitor in view. The child, a little girl named Sophie, slept soundly in her crib, her soft breathing audible through the speakers. For the first few hours, everything was uneventful. Emma scrolled through her phone, trying to distract herself from the oppressive stillness of the house. The only sound was the faint hum of the monitor. But as the clock struck midnight, something changed. The air grew colder, and the atmosphere seemed heavier, almost suffocating. Then she heard it, a faint tapping sound. It was coming from the window behind her. Emma froze, her heart racing. She remembered the rule: don't look out the windows. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. It sounded like fingernails scratching against the glass. She tried to focus on the baby monitor, but her eyes kept darting to the window. What could it be? An animal? A branch? The tapping stopped. Emma let out a shaky breath, relieved. But then the pager buzzed in her hand, startling her. She glanced at the monitor and saw that Sophie's crib was empty. Panic set in as Emma bolted upstairs. The door to Sophie's room was ajar, the faint glow of a nightlight spilling into the hallway. "Sophie?" Emma whispered, stepping inside. The crib was empty. Her tiny blanket lay crumpled on the floor. Emma's eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of the child. Then she noticed something chilling: muddy footprints leading from the crib to the window. The window was wide open, the curtains billowing in the cold night air. Emma's mind raced. Had someone broken in, taken Sophie? She grabbed her phone to call the parents, but there was no signal. A faint giggle echoed from outside. Emma's blood ran cold. Against every instinct, she approached the open window and peeked outside. In the moonlit yard, she saw a figure, small, childlike, but wrong. Its proportions were off, limbs too long and thin. It stood perfectly still at the edge of the woods, staring up at her. "Sophie," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. The figure tilted its head, then turned and disappeared into the trees. Emma stumbled back from the window, her heart pounding. She grabbed the pager and bolted back downstairs, frantically searching for any way to contact the parents. The tapping started again, louder this time, coming from every window in the house. Emma clutched her head, trying to block out the sound. Then, the baby monitor crackled to life. "Come outside," a voice whispered. It was soft, childlike, but distorted like a recording played backward. Emma screamed, throwing the monitor across the room. It shattered against the wall, but the voice didn't stop. It echoed through the house, growing louder and more insistent. "Come outside, come outside, come outside." The front door creaked open. Emma stared in horror as the figure from the woods stepped inside. It was taller now, its limbs impossibly long, its face obscured by shadow. "Where is Sophie?" Emma demanded, backing away. The figure didn't answer. It tilted its head, mimicking Sophie's giggle, then lunged toward her. Emma grabbed a nearby lamp and swung it with all her strength, shattering it against the figure's head. It let out an inhuman screech, retreating back into the shadows. Without thinking, Emma ran outside, desperate to escape. But the woods were alive with movement, shapes darting between the trees, whispers all around her. She kept running, branches tearing at her clothes until she reached the edge of the forest. There, standing in the clearing, was Sophie. But it wasn't Sophie. Her eyes were hollow, her smile too wide, her voice a distorted echo. "You didn't follow the rules." Emma woke up in her car, parked in the driveway of the mansion. The sun was rising, casting an eerie glow over the house. She looked around, disoriented, trying to make sense of what had happened. The pager was gone. So was the baby monitor. The front door opened, and the parents stepped outside, smiling as if nothing was wrong. "Did everything go okay?" the man asked. Emma stared at them, her voice barely a whisper. "Where's Sophie?" The woman tilted her head. "She's right where she's supposed to be." Emma didn't wait for an explanation. She started her car and sped away, vowing never to return. Months later, Emma received an envelope in the mail. Inside was $1,000 in cash and a note. "Thank you for your service. Remember the rules." She never babysat again. Some jobs pay more than money. They demand a piece of you, a part you can never get back. Emma's story is a chilling reminder that desperation can lead us to places we were never meant to go. What do you think? Was this supernatural or something far worse? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Share it with someone who loves a good scare. Story 3. The Seller. Some deals come at a price you can't afford to pay. Tonight's story is about Marcus, a tech repairman who loved uncovering hidden treasures online. But when he answered an offer on the dark web to buy a rare vintage hard drive, he got more than he bargained for. What started as an innocent purchase turned into a nightmare that blurred the line between buyer and prey. Marcus was a 27-year-old tech enthusiast who ran a small repair shop in his quiet hometown. His specialty, restoring and repurposing old tech. Customers would bring him broken laptops, dead phones and vintage computers, and Marcus would bring them back to life. He loved the challenge, and sometimes he'd stumble across rare parts or old hardware that collectors would pay a fortune for. One slow afternoon, Marcus was scrolling through forums, looking for deals on vintage tech. He knew the usual sites, eBay, Craigslist, but occasionally he'd dip into the darker corners of the internet. That's where he found it. A post titled, "Rare, Vintage Hard Drive, Confidential Files." The description was short and cryptic. Condition, excellent. Contents, priceless. Price, $500, non-negotiable. Shipping, immediate. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Priceless contents was a bold claim. It could be a scam, sure, but $500 wasn't much of a gamble if it turned out to be legitimate. He sent a message to the seller, who responded almost immediately. "Do you accept the terms?" "What terms?" Marcus replied. The seller's response chilled him. Once you buy it, you own it. There's no turning back. Marcus hesitated. Was this part of the gimmick? Some kind of marketing strategy to make the drive seem more mysterious? Against his better judgment, he replied, "I agree," and sent the payment. 3 days later, the package arrived. It was unassuming, just a small cardboard box with no return address. Inside was an old, scuffed-up hard drive wrapped in bubble wrap. It looked like something out of the early 2000s, definitely vintage, but nothing remarkable. Marcus connected the drive to his computer, eager to see what was inside. At first, there was nothing. The drive was empty. "Figures," he muttered, rolling his eyes. But then, a folder appeared on the screen. Personal files. Curiosity got the better of him, and he clicked on it. Inside were dozens of video files, all with random names like 00123.mp4 and 04156.mov. The thumbnails showed dimly lit rooms and shadowy figures. The first video opened with a man sitting in a dark room, illuminated only by a flickering light bulb. He looked directly into the camera and began to speak. "If you're watching this, it means you've bought the drive. You need to know it doesn't belong to me, and now it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to them." Marcus paused the video, a chill running down his spine. "What kind of sick joke is this?" he muttered. But he couldn't stop watching. The man in the video went on to describe how he'd acquired the hard drive from another seller on the dark web, who warned him not to open it. He didn't listen. The more he watched, the more he felt like he was being followed, like someone or something was always watching him. The next few videos were even worse. They showed surveillance footage of people in their homes, completely unaware they were being recorded. One clip showed a woman brushing her hair in the bathroom. Another showed a man sitting on his couch, staring blankly at his TV. Marcus felt sick. Who the hell makes this stuff? That night, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He'd turned off his computer, locked up the shop, and gone home. But he felt like he wasn't alone. Every shadow in his apartment seemed to move. Every creak of the floorboards felt deliberate. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. The message was from an unknown number. "Do you understand now?" Marcus's heart raced. He typed back, "Who is this?" No response. A moment later, his laptop, sitting closed on his desk, powered on by itself. The screen displayed a single file, watchme.mp4. Marcus's hands shook as he opened the file. The video showed his shop. It was dark, the security cameras capturing nothing but the faint glow of his computer screen. But then a figure appeared, a man in a hooded jacket, standing motionless in the center of the room. The timestamp showed it was from the night before, long after Marcus had left. The hooded figure turned to face the camera, though his face was obscured. Slowly, he raised his hand, holding up the hard drive. Marcus slammed the laptop shut, his mind racing. How did someone get into his shop? Why were they watching him? His phone buzzed again. "Destroy it, or you're next." The next morning, Marcus rushed to his shop. The door was locked, just as he'd left it, and nothing seemed out of place. But when he checked the security footage, the video file from the night before was gone. He tried to convince himself it was all a prank, some elaborate hoax to scare him into thinking the hard drive was cursed. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. Unable to focus on work, Marcus decided to destroy the drive. He took it to the back of the shop, grabbed a hammer and smashed it into pieces. For a moment he felt relieved. Whatever this was, it was over. Or so he thought. That night, Marcus was woken by a loud crash. He bolted upright in bed, his heart pounding. The sound had come from his living room. Grabbing a flashlight, he crept down the hallway, every nerve in his body screaming at him to turn back. When he reached the living room, the sight made his blood run cold. The shattered pieces of the hard drive were on his coffee table, perfectly reassembled. Next to it was a note written in jagged, shaky letters. "You can't destroy what isn't yours." The lights flickered, and Marcus felt a presence behind him. He turned, but there was no one there. His phone buzzed again. "You're part of the collection now." Over the next few weeks, Marcus's life unraveled. Everywhere he went, he felt like he was being watched. His shop's customers stopped coming, claiming they felt uneasy just walking through the door. His phone would buzz at all hours, messages from unknown numbers taunting him. "You shouldn't have watched. It's too late now. They're coming." And then the videos started. Every night a new file would appear on his laptop. They were surveillance clips of him, sitting in his shop, eating dinner, even sleeping in his bed. The final video was the worst. It showed Marcus sitting at his desk watching the video. Behind him a shadowy figure emerged, slowly creeping closer. Marcus turned off the laptop and grabbed his car keys. He drove through the night, heading anywhere but home. But no matter where he went, the feeling followed him. The texts continued. The shadows lingered. Weeks later, Marcus's shop was found abandoned. His laptop and phone were still on the desk, both displaying the same message. "You're part of the collection now." No one has seen or heard from Marcus since. Some deals come with a price far greater than money. Marcus's story is a chilling reminder of the dangers lurking in the dark corners of the internet. Was the hard drive cursed, or was it something far worse, something watching, waiting, and collecting? What do you think? Would you have opened the files or destroyed the drive immediately? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with someone who loves a good scare, and stay safe out there.